Hi everyone, you're here starting with Cody, and in today's video we are working on the new Bernina L860 overlocker. So we'll take a closer look at all the different things that this wonderful serger or overlocker, depending on what part of the world you're in, kind of depends on what you refer to the serger as, or the overlocker, but we'll be going over this new Bernina L860 overlocker. Also, if you aren't familiar with our new merchandise page, which all the proceeds from the merchandise purchased off of that shop go to help produce these videos, get things and different equipment and editing time and everything like that for the channel to help everyone with their new machines or help learn about the different Bernina machines out there. So some of the things on the channel is this cool shirt. This has been everybody's favorite. The Don't Fear the Ripper with the cute little Grim Reaper and his little seam ripper. Everybody hates a seam ripper, but we all have to use one. And my absolute favorite is the mug with Pete and I's face on it and with the cute little phrase, "Stitch please" on the back. These are just some of the items in the merchandise shop. So the link to the shop is in the description of the videos. So take a look and see if you find anything that would make perfect Christmas gifts or something for yourself. All right, so let's get started. So here we are in front of the new Bernina L860. To give you some background information about the L860 and how it compares to our current model 8 series overlockers, also known as a serger. So the L860 sits smack dab in the center between the L850 and the L890. So the L860 is a little bit more like the L890 in the way it works with the touchscreen and the automatic tension. However, the mechanics are more like the L850. So this is a big question that I get a lot. So the L850 can only do overlock stitches. So that includes 3-4 thread overlock, like for garment sewing, and like rolled hems. And that's exactly what this 860 is capable of. So the 850 and the 860 can do the same exact stitches and no more than each other. The L890 allows for cover stitches, which is what you typically see at the bottom of a t-shirt. Just like the cute t-shirt that I'm wearing, Don't Fear the Ripper. Just like any type of knit shirt at the bottom, those 2 rows of stitches are created on a cover stitch machine, and that's probably the biggest feature that sets the L850 and L860 apart from the L890. But so the L850 and L860, which is what we have here, are very, very similar in their mechanics. Actually, all 3 of them are very similar down here. So you have your upper looper and your lower looper, which we'll talk about some more, and that's it. So you have just your red and your green. Now your L890 also has another looper, which is your cover stitch looper, which is purple. This one does not have that. Other than that, the machines are designed and built all identical. The threading is very similar. The tools are very similar, but the L890 does have 3 extra different needle positions for your cover stitch. And it does come with a cover stitch foot, where the L860 and L850 come just with your regular overlock foot, which is a foot you can pretty much do anything with. There are some specialty feet out there. The one you need just for your everyday serging would be the one that comes with it. That is something that is important though. So the feet that fit the L850 also fit the L860. However, remember the feet that are for the L890 are different feet. So when you are out there purchasing feet, make sure you let your dealer know, or wherever you're buying your feet, to make sure that let them know you have the L890, and you're going to need the feet that typically have the letter C in front of them. And the way I always remember this is the C is the cover stitch. Is for the cover stitch machine. Doesn't mean they're cover stitch feet. It's just that's how I always remember is C for cover stitch, and the L is for your L850 and L860 machines. Like right now, this is the L10 foot, which came standard with the L860. So let's take a good look around the machine and how everything is designed. So like when you take your machine out of the box, this is what you get. This is what you see. However, of course, we do have our slide-on table. But so this machine does have a nice slide-on table, just like the rest of the two L8 series machines. And there's a little latch underneath here. You just squeeze, and it just slides right off. It's very nice, very sturdy, and very convenient. And when you slide off your table, it then accesses your free arm, which is a wonderful, wonderful feature if you are serging, tight sleeves or smaller items. It's easy to get around this throat. Very, very similar to a sewing machine, which is wonderful. The L890 does come with a little tray that fits in here, so it'll kind of close up this gap, because you do really want something there when you are serging, because your items have a tendency to go down into that little opening. But so as we're looking at our machine, down here we have our cutter. So this is basically how we can judge how much fabric the machine cuts off. So it can kind of give us a wider or narrower seam. What's nice about this, opposed to our previous model Bernina sergers and a lot of the other sergers out there, is it's very easy to go narrower and to go wider. Because previous models, it was very difficult to move that blade to the right. It was just very tight. You almost had to disengage the blade. Here it's very smooth transition. That was something I noticed right off the bat about the 8 series when they came out last year. Something else you'll also see that I'll point out is the L860 also has a needle threader, just like the L850. And the L890 does not have a needle threader, and that is because there are 5 different needle positions. And they just didn't design a needle threader to be able to change, to be able to thread all 5 different needle positions. And the way that we're able to thread, and in another video I'll go into more detail about the threading of the L860, but one of the things to be able to thread the left or the right needle is we can change this guy. Now I'll show a close-up, but there's a yellow marking here when we're threading the left needle, representing the left needle, and we move it over, there's a green marking, so we know we're threading the right needle. Very, very easy needle threader to use. Other knobs we have on the machine are our micro thread control, which is a super wonderful feature. We'll see that in another video, but we're able to easily change that all right here. One thing I'll notice, and I've always pointed out to my customers, everything we need to manipulate or change the machine is all right here. Easy to get to. We don't have to open up any doors, open up any side panels to be able to get to these items. Actually, the side panel doesn't even come off, like in previous models. And right above it is our rolled hem selection lever, which we've seen on all our Berninas over the past handful of years. So if we change to a rolled hem, we move it to the R. If it's just regular overlocker, we just move to the O. Something on this side, which you probably can't see with that view of the camera, but this is where we can engage and disengage our blade. Super easy to disengage. It's down. Really easy to re-engage. That's it. Very, very convenient. And I find I like to disengage my blade when I'm threading the machine. And I'll show you that when we thread, it just makes it easy to get the thread underneath our foot. So we have a thread cutter on the side here. And up at the top, which you can't see, but there's a little dial. There he is. And there's numbers up here. And this is our pressure foot pressure. So the standard pressure foot pressure is at a 4, and it's actually marked. The number 4 has a black circle around it, so you can really see that that's like the default pressure foot pressure. But you can increase that all the way up to a 6 for really for a lot of pressure on our fabric, or we can really reduce that. If we're dealing with a bulkier or a stretchier fabric, we can reduce that pressure foot pressure. Our buttons up here are one of the ways that we can adjust our tension. So if we want to adjust the left needle tension, we can easily increase it here or decrease it here. But one thing we're going to dive in soon is the interactive touchscreen. So here we can also click and change our tension digitally if we wanted to. But every stitch that we select, it's automatically going to change our tensions to a default tension. But depending on the fabric we're working with, we may need to adjust those tensions as well. So on the right-hand side of the machine, there's not much. There's only a hand wheel. And that's because On our L850 model, we have two knobs on the side, along with our regular hand wheel. And one knob is for our stitch length, and the other knob is for our differential feed, which we'll get into here. But here, our stitch length can be changed here, and at the same screen, we're able to change our differential feed. And we'll go over why we would change either one later. But that's also something that can change depending on what stitch we select. It's very similar to a sewing machine, so it's very, very user-friendly. So also there's a little collection bin that attaches to the machine to collect all the little fabric that is being cut off. Unfortunately, I don't have that with me right now. Something else that the sergers do have is we have a knee lift. Just like we see on all our sewing machines, we have a metal rod that comes down, and we're able to raise and lower the presser foot by using our leg or our knee, and it will then raise and lower the presser foot. But this machine does to have a manual presser foot release in the back, just like a standard sewing machine and a standard serger. So that's pretty much the outside of the machine. So we'll go in here, and you'll see we have our little area down at the bottom on our door, where we have our tweezers, our little screwdriver to change our needle inserter / extra little needle threader, and our little brush for cleaning out our machine, and a little place to store a pack of serger needles. And so these machines do recommend an ELX705 needle. And those needles, what's different opposed to a regular sewing machine needle is those needles have a groove in the back as well as a groove in the front. It just gives you a prettier stitch, especially when you deal with cover stitch, even though this is not a cover stitch machine. But also here, this is really nice. So if you are changing different size needles, you can put your spares in here that are used, or if you're switching from a 4-thread overlock to a 2-thread overlock, so you'd be removing one of the needle, either the left or the right, you can put that spare needle here and kind of store it right there. Here are our openings into our air threading system. So the blue is for the upper looper and the red is for the lower looper. This little dial here is how we engage the tubes so the air can pass through those tubes and then thread our upper and lower looper. And so we would just turn that dial to the left, press on the foot pedal, everything will line up and those tubes would shoot over, and then now when we push the foot pedal, it will send air, continuous blowing of air through the machine. And we'll go through that in the threading of the machine. And here's our upper and lower looper, and there's not much you really need to know about that because it threads itself. One of the beauties about the Bernina air threaders opposed to a non-air threading machine is it does not matter which order you thread the machine. Because traditionally with a machine that's not air threading, you would need to thread your upper looper first, then your lower looper, and then your needles. Here it does not matter the order. I can get to detail in that, but it's not worth it. Just know you can thread it in whatever order you want. There's one more little thing. So all of our Bernina sergers over the many years, we've had what they refer to as an upper looper converter. This is a neat little mechanism that always got lost. Most people had no idea what it was for. It sat in the door or it sat in a little Ziploc bag, and you would actually attach it to your upper looper. And it was a way to bypass that upper looper, so you could just use one needle and one looper. So it was just a 2-thread. And if you look in your book or in your big book of serging, which I have, which is wonderful, you'll see there are a number of stitches that just use 2 threads, but you have to use your upper looper converter. So like I mentioned, it was a little bitty piece that typically got lost. But with these 8 series sergers, it's a neat little thing that they did is they added the upper looper converter. It's kind of built into the machine, so when you want it, you just engage it and snap it in. When you don't want it, you just snap it back. It's always there, so you can never lose it. So that's something that's super cool about the 8 series sergers is that little upper looper converter. And we'll go over in another video some of the a lot of the stitches, but especially some of the 2-thread stitches using the upper looper converter. A lot of them are decorative, but it's really nice to be able to have that option. So to close all this back up, you just shut this door, and then you shut this door. And if you notice, it doesn't want to shut. And that is because, on purpose of course, I left the air threading knob turned to air threading. So our tubes are still connected to our loopers, which won't allow them to move. And if it were to try and sew, it would break those tubes or bend them. So it's a simple little mechanism. This little guy here won't let you close if this knob is turned to the left. So it forces you to disengage those tubes and close the door. And everything shuts very, very easily and smooth. So let's go over threading the machine, and you'll see how easy it is to thread the Bernina L860. Okay, here we are in front of the Bernina L860, and this threads just like the L850 does. So what we'll do is we'll open up our doors to gain access to our air threaders. And what I like to do first, I like to turn this dial over. If everything's lined up, which a lot of times it is because the needle does always stop in the up position. So when we turn the dial over to the left, the tubes here will actually lock into place. But there are some times where the needle position and the tubes just aren't perfectly lined up. And we see this sometimes, especially if the handle got turned a little bit. For whatever reason, the tubes seem to close into place, and it appears that they're in place. But what happens is when we go and thread into the air threading holes, it pulls the thread through, but it doesn't want to feed it all the way through. And what it is, these tubes aren't exactly locked into place, so there's a little air seeping out. So it's not a sealed system, and it's not easily pushing that thread through. So the only thing you have to do in that case is come over to your hand wheel and give it a little turn, you'll kind of rock that hand wheel a little forward and a little backwards. And if you were having that issue, you'll hear it then completely snap into place. Otherwise, you shouldn't have any problems at all. So I wouldn't worry about turning that unless you're finding that you're having issues threading the machine. So we're going to start with the red thread. So what you want to make sure is so you have the thread with both hands, and then that you snap it into place here so it's caught. You want to make sure it's caught back here. Otherwise, you'll have issues. And that's the case with just about any type of serger. So the trick with using the air threading system, and I should use black thread just so you could see it better, is I like to take some slack. So you can see here I've got thread coming here to this hand, and then I've got thread going back to the end. I hope you can see it. So what this does, it gives me a nice slack, so it will feed all this thread through the loopers and then spit it out at the end. So we have this turned to the left. So all we're doing now is pressing down on our foot pedal, which is the same as your normal sewing machine, your normal Bernina sewing machine foot pedal. You'll push down and you'll hear the compressor, and then you don't have to feed this thread through this hole at all. It's just going to shoot it right on through. So pushing the foot pedal, and it just sucked it right on through. So if we go and look at our looper, we'll see that it shot it out. Perfect. So now we'll come to the next looper, which is our upper looper. Snap it into place. We'll pull this slack out, and then we've got the tip of the thread, just about an inch or so. Press on the foot pedal, and it shot it right on through. And you can see over here, it just shot it out the upper looper. Super easy. And remember, I mentioned about lowering or disengaging our knife. So let's do that. And what it does, it allows us to take our thread and just easily feed it underneath our foot pedal. And we don't have to worry about our maneuvering the thread around the blade. So now we'll go and thread the needles, which are super easy. So it doesn't matter, but we'll start with the green. Just snap it in. And then we're going to ride underneath this bar here. And you can see here there's a yellow and a green little guide. So we'll work with the green, so that's one in the back. We'll go back there. And then we'll feed it through here. And then we can see here there's a green and yellow marking. So the green marking is for the right slit and the yellow markings for the left slit. There's a right slit and a left slit. So feed it through the right slit, and now we'll come use our needle threader. So we want to make sure it's on the green, which it is, because that's the yellow. So feed it to the green, and it's a very easy needle threader